As a small preface to this video, I just want to mention that this review will have a bit of an unorthodox reviewing method, which I hope you will appreciate, as I've been using it in private for about 5 years now, and this is the first time I actually show it to anyone. I will be going through 8 different categories, which will be separately rated from 0 to 5, before giving the show a final score from 0 to 20, according to what each category scored. And finally, we will be placing it in a tier list. And with that out of the way, onto the review. This movie, at its heart, is about the love between a parent and a child. But before we get into that, let's take a look at each individual plotline we follow throughout the movie. In the main plotline, we follow Hilda as she experiences the life among trolls, both the good and the bad, and finally having some of their mysteries revealed. All this while still having her struggle from the separation from her previous life, which was an unusually darker turn to go with when compared to the overall mood of the series, but very much appreciated. For a movie aimed at a younger audience, it does an amazing job at establishing the similarities between the actions of trolls and humans, whether good or bad, without straying from the fact that trolls are constantly abused by the population of Trollberg, mostly due to the city's inborn fear, rooted in their ignorance. Its B-plot, however, is what makes the movie truly remarkable in my opinion. In the B-plot we follow Johanna, Hilda's mother, as she struggles in her search for Hilda and having to care for a child that was forced upon her. Not a lot of shows and movies intended for children attempt to capture the despair of a parent who has been forcefully separated from their child, and even fewer actually succeed, but Hilda and the Mountain King is more than proof that this is not only possible to do it right, but to also excel at it. This movie continues the trend of making Johanna's troubles as a parent be felt, with heart-wrenching scenes such as her outburst at a troll child and immediate regret, breaking down in the car after narrowly escaping what would have been certain death, and one of my favorite scenes of the movie, Johanna dropping off David and Frida. Where most movies would go with the irresponsible parent who puts kids in danger because adventure, Hilda and the Mountain King comes out on top simply by giving us a real portrayal of a mature yet slowly despairing parent, who will not put a pair of kids in danger simply because they ask, but can still admire and appreciate the fact that their daughter has friends that would willingly put themselves in danger to help her. In the C-plot we follow David and Frida, who were basically curbed to the side in what could have been a very good and contained additional plotline.
Didn't see that coming.
It would have been hard to do anything truly meaningful due to time constraints, I bet. And the comics have no mention of them, so take that as you will, but I see a lot that could have been improved. I believe that if the writers had decided to stick to the class's struggle to stop the antagonization of the trolls, it could probably have been a more meaningful spin to it. But deep down, I know it would have been awkward having David and Frida ignore the fact that Hilda had been transformed into a troll. They seem to hint at something greater for Frida close to the end of the movie, when she helps one of the trolls remove a bell from his nose, but nothing really comes out of it. I'm not even going to get into Frida's weird fight with one of the trolls, which honestly just felt like awkwardly placed exposition for Frida's sake. The only cool thing I see coming out of this scene is Frida getting a plotline in the future related to troll magic, but that's probably a tinfoil hat theory. When it comes to David, they managed to create an interesting bit of tension between him and his mother, who had decided to join the city guard. It didn't take a lot of screen time, and for what it was, I think it's very well executed. So, as I was saying in the beginning of the video, Hilda and the Mountain King is, at its heart, a movie about motherly love, and it permeates the entirety of this movie. From the duo of Trilla and Johanna's love for their children being what knows the spell, and the calling from the troll mother beneath the city of Trollberg being the reason that compels the trolls to stay, this theme is everywhere. Even in the C-plot we have David and his mother, which was honestly the only good addition involving minor characters in this movie. When it comes to the conflict resolution between trolls and humans in its final scenes, once again the movie respects itself and its audience enough to not act like everything is okay, just because trolls grew flowers. Although not enough to take Alberg's situation more seriously, but oh well, it's still a kids show whether we like it or not. As is the case in real life, the movie shows this type of multi-generational conflict cannot be resolved just by exchanging a few kind words. And the movie goes out of its way to make sure it shows that not everyone is content with the new status quo. I'm hoping something will be done with this new plot beat, which I think would mix well with Hilda's class support for trolls. We might get to see something in the last season that is yet to come, but I guess only time will tell. Overall, the plot is extremely good, but the minor character plotlines could have been better or just ignored. Having Alberg's plotline resolved with the squishy Deus Ex Machina was quite unnecessary, just like almost everything involving Frida, which, in my opinion, are most of what brings the plot score down to a 3.5 out of 5. Once more, Hilda and the Mountain King proves this series is paramount when it comes to eldritch fey magic permeating a children's world. And although this is supposed to be a review of the movie alone, it would be remiss not to take into account everything that has been built in its previous 2 seasons. Its adaptation of Scandinavian folklore is amazingly well done throughout the series, and having that groundwork already built for this movie, I think it's more than okay and expected at this point for the world to feel as cryptic and arcane as it does. As I said already before when talking about Hilda's plotline, this movie's focus when it comes to world building is the daily life of trolls and their fixations, their history, and how their society functions. As the show has already beautifully done before with most of its monsters, we come to understand that trolls have a lot more depth than what was previously assumed. The only meh thing that I might have to say against it is that the movie will probably feel weird if you haven't watched the first 2 seasons, especially when it comes to character dynamics. But honestly, why the hell would you be watching this movie before the already released 2 seasons that can be found in the exact same place you'll find this movie? For world building purposes, Hilda and the Mountain King is a 5 out of 5 in my opinion. Hilda and the Mountain King does an awesome job at looking into Johanna's motivations and, to maybe a lesser extent but still well done, for Hilda and Charlotte too. What it fails to do, in my opinion, is giving its side characters any meaningful things to do. As I said before, the comics make no mention of Frida and David, and the way they stumble throughout the runtime of the movie shows they really weren't supposed to be here. Other than that, I do not think there was a lot of growth from our main characters, but neither do I think it would have been necessary. The second season of the show already did that extremely well for both Hilda and her mother. But we do get some interesting bits from Trilla, and, surprisingly, Gerda from the Troll Safety Patrol finally standing up to Dollar Store Gaston. It's also kinda sad seeing her back down and letting Hallberg continue his tirade right after going against his wishes, but again, it was an extremely minor part of the movie. Honestly, now that I think about it, I think giving them more spotlight in this movie would have been a better step to take than giving it to Frida. Maybe at least giving Hallberg a medal would have felt a bit less weird. Another character who I really liked the direction the movie took them in is Trundle. I do not think, for example, that we can call the Mountain King an evil character. He does try to cause harm to humans, but only because he has been pushed into doing so after being forcefully separated from his mother for so long, and having his people oppressed in such an horrible manner. Even when confronted by his brother, he refuses to fight him, the same brother who destroyed his revolution, whose true objective was to reunite his people with their mother, the same brother who isolated and imprisoned him for longer than we can possibly imagine. In the end, he sacrifices himself so that his kin can be reunited with their mother. Some of the actions he took might have a portion of malice behind them, but can we blame him? Overall, even though I'm going a bit hard on it, I think the movie handled its main characters quite well, so for this section, it's a very solid 3.5 out of 5. No more, no less. As is the case with the show, the visuals for this movie are superb and full of character. For any other movie, the animation for this film could have carried it quite far in the scoring board, but given that everything else in this movie was made with so much thought put into it, it ends up enhancing the whole experience. The animation for Hilda is more than impressive on its own right, but the way it is intertwined with its mysterious yet tender world, it accomplishes something truly unique. All the shots where the Mountain King's Bell prison is involved, his giant castle which gives some very appreciated Dark Souls-esque vibes, and the premonition dream about the Troll Mother, every single one of these scenes is more than able to drive home the mysterious and faith feeling of this series. Scenes such as Hilda's experience with the ringing bells are what finally cemented how painfully horrifying they are for the common troll, which was probably one of my favorite parts of the movie, and I don't think that could have been possible without the amazing animation work involved. Hilda and the Mountain King accomplishes something that we see far too rarely. It gives us beautiful animation that in the end serves the point. And for this, Hilda and the Mountain King's animation gets a very much deserved 5 out of 5. The voice acting for this movie, although very good all in all, it does not have any performance that I would call perfect. It's not bad by any means, in fact, it's probably better than a lot of other shows, but it lacks any performance that could be said to have been extraordinary, and at times, this leads to the voice actors being slightly overshadowed by its animation, which is not inherently a bad thing, but it's also certainly not the desired outcome. All in all, there is not a single moment where the voice acting seemed awkward or out of place, but there really isn't anything that could be considered excellent, although Daisy Haggard comes very close in their portrayal of Johanna. With all things considered, it's a 3.5 out of 5. The sound in this movie was yet another pleasant surprise, but I do have to say, having watched the movie both with headphones and speakers, there are some mixing choices when changing from scene to scene that were a bit jarring to watch, but nothing too immersion breaking. What to me truly brings the sound choice up in ranking when compared to the rest of the movie is two particular scenes. The first one, the bell scene. I do not think it could have been as powerful as it was if it wasn't for how well the sound effects were modeled for this part, and it was a way more discreet showing of power than what you might assume at first glance. We begin this scene with Hilda unearthing after turning into a rock due to being exposed to the sunlight. Having been armed with a bell on her nose, she hears for the first time how mind-shattering they sound to trolls and runs away after getting it out. Starting this scene from her point of view drives home how awful an experience it is for trolls, but when we cut away to Hilda running and lose her point of view, we see another troll with basically the exact same bell, and we get to hear what it would normally sound like as Hilda runs away. Fair warning though, I don't know if I'm reading too much into this if I'm being honest, but I think it serves really well to demonstrate how surprisingly fragile trolls are. The second scene I was talking about is the entirety of the dream sequence. Sure, it might just be a choice to go with more reverb and echo than usual, but I don't think it would have been even half as powerful and eldritch if it weren't for that, especially its final shot. Both of these weren't really anything out of this world that blew my mind, but it certainly did more than anyone could have asked of it. So, taking all that into question, and remembering the only problems I found were some mixing choices, I will have to give the sound direction a solid 4 out of 5. Finally, we get to the music. I'm not gonna lie, I'm very biased towards giving it a higher score as I love most of the artist's choices, but some of the deviations it chooses to bet on don't work well enough for a maximum score, especially for the first 20 minutes of the movie. As is the case with the previous two seasons, the movie's soundtrack leads strongly with warm synths in most of its background music, something that does a good job at representing the vibe of the show. The problems usually appear when it moves away from this tried and true method, but never in a way that detracts too much from the experience. For that, it's just shy of achieving a 4.5, but in the end I have to give it a 4 out of 5. Hilda and the Mountain King is an absolutely amazing movie that, just like the series, I would recommend everyone to at least give it a shot, especially people who love good animation and wholesome stories. It's an excellent follow-up to the series, which I'm sure anyone who has appreciated the previous two seasons will love while we wait for the third season. And even if it was to be the end of Netflix adaptations of Hilda, I can say that I would be more than okay with that. Although it might have its problems, what it does well, it does extremely well, and for that, I give it a 16.6 out of 20, which narrowly lands it in the A tier. Hey, so this has been my first review on YouTube, I guess, and I had a lot of fun making this video, so I'll probably make more, and if you liked it you can subscribe and wait for more. Next will probably be the Vox Machina show, unless someone recommends me some fun stuff to watch, and I'll probably review it. You can just leave it in the comments for now if you want. And well, that's it. I have D&D stuff on my channel if you want to see that, I guess. Some bad, some good. Anyways, bye.